Joey Mure and Russ Morgan. They are not a typical guest who are active wholesalers right now in the business as their sole and only focus. So we're going to hear a little bit about their story, how they're helping real estate investors, and kind of just hearing philosophies and mindset from high-level entrepreneurs, because that's what we try to bring on the show to help you guys and take actions that can be applied today, this year in 2020 as we're just starting off. So looking forward to hearing from these guys. And Russ or Joey, fielder's choice, who wants to start off? Just hear a little bit more of a story and background on you guys before we dive in here.
Well, I'll jump in because I'm usually the quiet one in the group.
Love
Carlos,
that.
Joey will not agree with that at all.
Not at all.
But I do, yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that we're not the wholesale experts, even though I was teaching I have 4 children. I was teaching my kids the other day as we were playing Monopoly how to wholesale. And as we were buying properties, and I was buying them, and then I was turning around and wholesaling them to them, and vice versa. So it was, it was a great way for me to educate them on how that process is. But yeah, man, thanks for having us on the show. Glad to be here. Our background comes from definitely trying to teach and help people who are looking for alternate forms of income, ways, whether that is to create time freedom, geographical freedom, money to buy a lake house, whatever you can think of. That's our platform, and we love to share it as much as we can.
Love it.
Yeah, and I got to know Russ about 10 or 12 years ago, and I was in the mortgage business at the time. And so I kind of got to learn real estate from that side of things, the financial side. But the big aha for me was that I knew that something just wasn't quite right with how I was investing, how I was saving for the future. And Russ introduced me to some different concepts and things that I immediately gravitated to because they gave me more control and they were more efficient, right? And so we started doing that for about 4 years. And then finally I woke up one day and I was like, wait a minute, why am I not teaching people this? Like, this is powerful stuff. And there's just not a lot of people that know about it. So that started us on a journey about 6 years ago now.
So Carlos, basically what he said is that he saw how bad I was doing it for 4 years and said, man, absolutely, I could crush this.
I got to improve this. Yeah. No, so that's been about 6 years ago. And we launched Wealth Without Wallstreet. And I've been helping all sorts of people from all different walks of life. But primarily, we do connect with the real estate community well because we think alike. And that's why I'm glad to be on the show today.
Very cool. Tell us a little bit about what exactly that all encompasses, what's all under the umbrella Wealth Without Wallstreet. If you guys are just hearing the audio on podcast, they have an awesome, I can see it, soundproof walls there, the Wealth Without Wallstreet that they just drew up. They just penciled in right before the show. So it looks very, very efficient there.
Yeah. Well, we kind of build kind of from an approach of, like, we call it the kind of hierarchy of wealth. And we want to make sure that we follow some very basic principles. So Joey came from the mortgage industry. I came actually from a typical financial planning background. So some of the basic things that you would get in corporate America of being good with cash and mitigating expenses, looking at, cost and cost of capital, taxes, and all those things. We do a lot of work on that on the front end to get things orchestrated and created correctly. So from that platform, then we can efficiently invest. And as you can tell by our brand, Without Wallstreet, we literally love the concept of investing in ourselves, investing in businesses that we own. And so we follow the Kiyosaki approach, heavy with real estate, heavy with business ownership, and as well as we get involved into private lending and those sort of things.
Yeah, and it really kind of falls into 3 phases with us. We feel like most people have abdicated control, of their money. So they've given money over to Wall Street kind of blindly. And they've just said, well, this is the only way to invest. This is the only way to get ahead. So I have to do the 401k. I have to do the IRAs. I have to do the things that people say are good for me and just give up money. Whereas most people that are hearing this are taking that control through real estate. Then we say, well, how can we get there faster? Because you've picked your path. You've taken control. You're keeping more cash in your control. Now you've picked your path. In this case, it's real estate. And then you're saying, how can I get there as fast as possible? And so we utilize different strategies to make those things as efficient as possible. And really, they would fall into both sides of the Robert Kiyosaki idea, right? Passive income greater than monthly expenses. So we want to both mitigate the expenses, and one of those key ways we do it is through tax strategies. And then we also want to build up our passive income by allowing our savings to be growing while we sleep, right? We want our savings to constantly be doing work behind the scenes, not too dissimilar to like what you guys do with InvestorFuse. You've got so many things happening automatically that's helping people to build their business. That's what we want our cash to be doing as well.
Very cool. Love the breakdown there. So I don't forget, and I also like just giving resources during the show or towards the beginning of the show so folks don't have to wait to the end to hear everything. Where can folks find out more info on what you guys are doing with that? Because like I was saying, a lot of our community is obviously in real estate investing. Maybe not so much so the passive end of it where they're looking to put lumps of money somewhere or, different avenues. So where can folks find out more about you guys and how you guys can help them?
So I always point to our podcast because I feel like that's a great way for people to, learn at their own pace. And we get people that, it might take them several months before they say, man, I need to do this. They've been listening little by little, or they just consume it, right? You can do it at your own pace. And so that's a great place. It's just the Wealth Without Wall Street podcast. And then secondly, we've built a community where we have courses that are embedded in those. And we want to be able to offer that to your audience for free. Normally it's like a $400 a year subscription, but we want to give that to you to offer to your guests. And there's courses. The baseline of what we teach is called the infinite banking concept. And that's really your cash management system that's going to be super efficient. And we've built video courses within our community that people can access for free through your own link. So we're going to actually have that set up for you. It's wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/InvestorFuse so that people can get access to that for free.
Really appreciate that. And I'll make sure that's in the show notes for you guys too, so you can just click on it and check it out. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Could you hit me a little bit with some broad strokes as far as strategies that you guys are doing? I know you mentioned some tax strategies, things like that, before we dive into kind of philosophy of how you guys tick, which will be super helpful for people.
Yeah, well, when I first, it's funny, we were talking pre-show, Carlos. I told you I was actually up in Ellicott City for a while right after college. I worked for a company called Enterprise Rent-A-Car, of all places. I was one of the management trainees and worked up through that industry for about 4 years. And I learned really early on that the way you make money is not necessarily focused on revenue. It was mitigating expenses, reducing costs. And so we've kind of taken that same approach into our business strategy. And so we look at taxes as one of them. There's a lot of little small tax strategies. By the way, neither one of us are CPAs or tax attorneys, so I'm not going to give anybody tax advice, right? I'll just tell you, if you hear us talking about something, just know it's something that we are doing, but through the advice of tax attorneys and CPAs. So make sure you consult your own. That's my disclosure there.
There's your disclaimer.
But there's just so many little things that are available to us as investors and just people who run our own businesses, right? So like you mentioned, passive, we don't really believe passive. Passive doesn't mean uninvolved. It just means it's that I don't necessarily have to go to a job every day, right? That's most of people's goal. And so when we have businesses that we operate, we have S Corps or LLCs, and sometimes we have people come to our houses and things like that. We teach people through our attorneys and stuff like that how they can literally rent their house out to their business to hold those meetings. And you think that that's a small thing, but last year alone, I was able to write off over $84,000 from my business to myself and not have to pay $1 of income tax on that personally, and not have to, but have 100% of that deductible to my business. So that obviously can offset some significant income. So basically that goes back to a very simple rule that was created way back when Eisenhower was in office, and they call it the Augusta rule. And most people know this, especially in the real estate world. They just don't think about it. But you can rent your house out up to 14 times a year and not have to report that as income. But they never thought about it. They may have thought about it like, oh, if I have a beach house or a lake house or something like that, I could do that. But they never thought about their own primary dwelling unit. And if you own 2 dwelling units or you own 5 dwelling units that, could be considered a residence in which you live in at some part in the year, they could be used. We got clients that are doing this with motorhomes, with yachts. I mean, you name it, it can be done. And there's just little strategies like that. So we tend to partner most of our clients. We've basically brought in a tax consulting group that helps our clients work through these processes. And it goes all the way down to building the LLCs for their real estate businesses and other things.
Very cool. Could you do that on Airbnb as well, or does it kind of have to be off the book without a third party? That's just interesting. And it's stuff like that, guys, like a compound effect. That is a cool example, but I'm sure they have tons of little things like that, whether it's a tax strategy or a real estate rental type strategy, 14 days or less from a primary residence.
Yeah.
So when these stuff starts compounding is where you can see some crazy, savings, like you said, mitigating expenses.
Yeah. So if you wanted to do that, so for instance, if you had, you wanted to rent your, room out in your house up to 14 times, no more. If you do 15 times, it's not 14 are free and the one is taxable. All 15 become taxable. But if you wanted to rent out a room in your house 14 times, you wouldn't have to declare that as income based upon that IRS code. But here's the thing is that what I figured out is that, I do have a lake house and I could rent it up to 14 times and maybe I could get, I don't know, $400 or $500 a night maybe for it. But the math on it's better for me to rent it to my business 14 times at $3,000 a night because I'm not renting it as a room. I'm not renting it as a place for people to come sleep in. I'm renting it like you would rent a conference center. And so if you're sitting there in Baltimore and you go downtown Baltimore, and you're looking for a place to rent a facility that not only could house a number of people, could allow you to have cooking, and could allow you to have rooms and things like that, the daily rental rate, and I'm talking like 4-hour rental rate, is $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 maybe. And they're going to have that based upon the square footage. And so we basically have commercial appraisers come into people's homes and they evaluate the square footage of it. Then they go around and they evaluate the rental spaces around them where people maybe rent for weddings or for receptions or things like that.
Conferences, yeah.
And they give comps based upon that. So again, it's just lots of just really interesting things that we've learned over the years that if we can save $1, that's revenue that comes in our pocket and has no risk, no expense.
Well, and the more we do that, the more we can get to our end goal as fast as possible, which is, let's say that is buying the next wholesale deal. Let's say that's buying the next Airbnb, place that we want to start renting. In our case, we've dumped a lot of money into our business as a result. That's helped us to really 10x over the last 3 years. And so that's been our focus, but we've also done some land flipping. We've also done some Airbnb stuff. And so this is helping us to become more efficient to get to those end goals of creating more streams of income.
Very cool. Just from talking to you guys have a very interesting and powerful viewpoint on how you use efficiency, and also just some of the stuff here. It's not super complicated. It's something that anybody listening could be doing who has a real estate business, just kind of learning about it and being aware of it.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah, I would say what's one of the biggest challenges that we face is that people have to slow down to be educated. And we're all just so busy, right? I mean, we all have so many things. Our business is pulling on us. Our family's pulling on us.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all these things. And so if we can slow down enough to learn, we can become that much more efficient where we'll get more of our time back.
Well, I do think that what you just said there, Joey, and you've probably seen this too in your potentially your own life, but definitely probably friends and colleagues, Carlos, is that we get going with businesses. We get really successful. We get dollars coming in. We're doing tons of transactions. But what happens with those dollars as they're coming in, they tend to sit in checking accounts, savings accounts, and things like that. And when we're using little or no money to get into a lot of these deals, right? I mean, that's the beauty of wholesaling, is that we start piling up dollars that we're not spending in our lifestyles, but we don't have time to think about where to put it. And we know, hey, the best return I've ever had is in my business, so I definitely don't want to go on Wall Street over here and try to give it to somebody else to get a 10% return. That seems stupid. But so what do? We just stuff it in the local bank and let it start piling up. And that seems comfortable because we know it's always liquid. We can touch it. And so one of the things that Joey and I found out a long time ago is there's strategies to where we can put our dollars in accounts that can grow, earn safe 3-4% type returns that are protected, that give us access and some other benefits, but allows us to leverage against those dollars to go do the next deals that we have and invest in the things that can produce return, but then have a safe place to put it back. And so a lot of our messaging and things that you'll hear if you come and listen to our podcast revolves around that simple efficiency. Is like, if I can get $1 to do 2 or 3 different jobs, then I'm going to be, much further ahead than if I just try to get $1 to do savings, $1 to do investing, $1 to pay down the debt, $1, to pay for kids' college, whatever the thing is. And so we're building approaches to where people truly are becoming the bank in their transactions. They can use as much of their money as they want to, but they're leveraging it against an asset that's growing, very similar to most real estate investors when they are borrowing against equity in houses and things.
Yeah. Very cool. Guys, make sure you check out, I didn't mean to cut you off there, Jeff, you're about to say something, but make sure you check out the link in the show notes here, because I'm going to do it myself because I'm very intrigued. I want to get your guys' kind of overview, though, on passive income. Sure. And how it may not be as passive as some folks see. If it's wholesalers that don't have any rental income, anything like that, how they may be. I was having dinner in Los Angeles with a good buddy, Josh, who told me that exact thing. He had a portfolio of about 100 properties, and he's liquidating them right now, getting rid of them because he said it's too much work. Thought it was going to be passive when it's way too hands-on for what he's trying to do, all the different businesses he's running now. So I kind of want to hear just from some high level wealth builders what you guys think about, the term passive income for a typical real estate rental property.
So I will say this, I'm going to borrow a lot of advice from people that we've interviewed on our show and tell you that I think most people start with an idea and then they pivot once they realize, wait a minute, there's a lot more work to this than I had anticipated, but they don't know it until they scale up to a certain point where there's like that breaking point. And then they realize, well, wait a minute, I could be more efficient with my time if I pivoted to this type of real estate strategy. And I think at least what I've heard a lot of is people start in wholesale because it's easier to get your foot in the door. You don't have to have as much capital. It's just more of a hustle, right? And then as you do it, now I have seen people like Jamil Damji was on our show and we talked about him ahead of time. Mm-hmm. He's built it to where that's a scalable business just simply in the wholesale model, right? And he hasn't had to pivot into something else. He's really just built the business and he had to scale it with technology and with people and human capital. But it's now a thriving business that it really doesn't take a whole lot of his time. In fact, one of the things he mentioned to us was, I have a hard time knowing what to do with my time now. So that's like one of his challenges. So I'm not saying that none of these businesses can be done in a passive or more passive way, but typically what we find is people have started with wholesale, then they flip into some sort of like a long-term rental with the capital that they've built. Then they realize, well, wait, maybe I could just sell those or leverage those into apartments. Now I've got more scale with not as much maintenance and oversight, or we have a property manager on site for that particular unit, whatever. And then but then as we've just kind of delved into quite a bit here, a lot of people are now flipping into an Airbnb model where they are being able to scale that with virtual assistants and online chat tools and things like that, as we were just interviewing Jay Massey the other day, he mentioned, I don't know how many units he has now, but he's spending about an hour to 2 hours a day in his business. So it still takes his perspective. He still has to be involved to a certain degree, but he's essentially traded less of his time for more money. And that's really what I would say is the basis of passive income, is how can I continue to get a higher percentage of dollars for my time.
You get the point here. He never stops talking. I never can talk, Carlos. I want to talk. He never shuts up. I mean, it's a never ending thing with this guy. No, seriously, here's age-old book, E-Money, right? Michael Gerber.
Yep.
E-Myth. I said E-Money.
The E-Myth, yeah.
E-Myth.
E-Myth real estate investor.
Yeah, I mean, when you start thinking about creating systems and processes, like the thing we love about real estate, right? We get to put our hands on it. We can see it. We get to help people. I mean, it's just an exciting opportunity, and there's lots of money in a deal. But if we're not careful, what we create is a monster. And that it sounded like your friend. We've talked to different investors that experienced that. We have close friends that have experienced that, where they created a monster. Now, the problem was not that he had 100 properties. The problem was he just didn't have processes and systems in order for him not to have to do every one of those things. Well, I mean, I just think about my house. In order to manage my household, right? I mean, we've got 4 kids. We got a dog. We got a pool. We got 30 acres. I mean, there's all sort of stuff. I could literally spend almost all day just trying to keep the house up, the yard clean, the leaves out, the pool going. But I don't do any of those things. My wife will confirm all of that. I don't do any of those things, right? So I've hired people as many different areas as I possibly can to help in those areas. And so I find people who are good at those, but also will do it at a much cheaper cost than I can. And so we scale our businesses based upon systems and processes. And that was one of the things that, our first level, when we talk to people, is that, man, you got to first get your cash and expenses in order. And most people have that disorganized. They always want to go to the top of the pyramid where all the money is, right? But we said, no, that can't be where you start, because more money is just going to accentuate all the problems you have.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to fix the baseline first. And I know it sounds like a really basic strategy. Like, really, you're going to teach me about budgeting, teach me about tax strategies, going to teach me about how to manage my cash and where to put the cash. But you got to get that right. So then you build your foundation on rock, not sand. But really, as we start thinking about it, now we start to invest. Who are we going to invest in? We're going to invest in ourselves. And as Michael Gerber would say in the E-Myth, he would talk about, first you hire yourself in every one of those positions. You create your own organizational chart, and your name may be in all of those positions. But as quickly as you possibly can, you start hiring somebody to those positions that can do that job equally as good or better than you can, but for a far less cost. And that may be virtual. It may be a real tangible person. And so we have to find systems and processes. And so what we did is we brought in a business consultant that's what he does. He goes into businesses and he teaches the business owner how to make their business passive. And so whether that's a business like ours, which is in the financial services world, or as yours that you're listening to, this is in the real estate investing world, you got to have systems and processes to make your business more passive. And doesn't mean you're not involved. You have to be a manager. We think of ourselves as CEOs of our business, not the employee, not the person, not the salesperson, right? We have to be the CEOs of our business, and we have to have a COO running it and somebody who is looking after it. And our job is to make sure everybody's doing their job, verifying, inspecting what we expect from our business. So I think that's true. And do we need to do all those things at first? Sure. That's why our names have to be in all those boxes. You have to know what it looks like to actually go find the property, how to negotiate the sale, how to make sure, the collections are happening. If you're in a traditional rental world, all those things, you need to know how to do that and what's the right way and wrong way. But then you start hiring people to do it, and then you start managing those people. And so hopefully your time is getting greater, and you're trading some of the revenue for that. But that's what we all know that. We have to price that in from the very beginning. And I think that's a mistake a lot of people I see when they get in that position. They don't price their real estate deals appropriately, meaning that they haven't assigned for somebody else to be managing these certain areas so that they don't have to. And then they get involved in them, and they're like, well, crap, if I hire somebody to do it, then there's no meat. And so why am I even doing it?
No, that
absolutely love that. No, I was going to say, I absolutely love that. And well said. I already have some quotes in my head I'm going to either use in the title or in the description here. Did you want to touch on that, piggyback on that at all, Joey?
Well, I was just going to say that this is what we talk about a lot when we talk about your capital too, is that you're either paying interest or you're giving up interest, right? That's something that people don't think about. Whenever I pay cash for something, that people think, oh, well, that has no cost to me. But really, if we don't assign a cost to our capital, that it could have been growing if I didn't use it on this deal or that deal or whatever the thing is, then I'm not really giving it proper credence. The same is true with our time. I can either do the job and save that money that I would have paid somebody else, or I can pay somebody at an amount that is far lower than what my time should be worth. And I think that goes back to mindset. I mean, you started off saying, want to get a little bit about your mindset on business and wealth building. If you're not constantly raising your lid to think about your time as more and more valuable, it will not do it on its own. You have to have either people around you or yourself or getting coaches or whomever it might be to continue to raise that lid to where when you look at a clock, which, I mean, everything's digital now, but if you can imagine a physical round clock and at each hour there's a $500 mark, and you say, man, is what I'm doing this hour going to make me $500 or $1,000 or $2,000, whatever the number is? You need to keep raising that number and keep hiring for those things that are far less than that.
Well, and I say this too, one of the things that our consultant has hit us with that has really helped us, I think, as business owners, is first you got to start out, what's an amount of money that you really want to make and that you can live off well, and pick that number. Now, again, we always say, oh, that's $5 million, right? I mean, I can slum it off of that. But there's a number, and I've heard studies on this. Once you go through certain thresholds, whether it's 75,000, 150,000, 400,000, there's a threshold. Once you go through it, really the rest of it doesn't matter. You just start buying bigger, nicer things, but it's just more junk to sell on eBay, just at higher ticket items, I guess. But the goal is once you can pick that number, you say, okay, if I can make my business make more than that, what if I took those dollars over and above that number, and all I did was reinvest it into the business that gave me more time back? Not that it created more revenue, but those extra dollars gave me more time. So if I get to a position to where now I can, I use this example because my brother-in-law is an orthopedic surgeon. And early on in his, he went to work in this group practice, and he was working with these partners, and they were doing Medicare patients, a pretty good percentage of them. And one day he just sat down and he looked at his revenue, and he realized that like 15% of his revenue was coming from Medicare patients, but yet 40% of his time was seeing Medicare patients. So he was like, man, I would gladly give up 15% of my revenue to get back 40% of my time. And he made a very bold move in that world because, as you might imagine, orthopedic surgeons, most of the people you're working on are typically elderly, and all of them, if not most of them, if not all of them, have Medicare. So it was like he was isolating his potential patient base, but the reality was he was isolating 40% of the people that he was seeing, but he got back, or 15%, 40% of the people, but he got back all that time, and all he gave up was 15% of the money. So we started looking at our business models that way. And so that's what I challenge you to do as you're listening to this, is think about that. Like, do you have a number in mind? Can you say, okay, as I hit that number, can I invest dollars into systems, processes? I mean, obviously what you guys do, Carlos, with InvestorFuse is an amazing technology that automates things, the 80-20 rule, and helps us keep more of our money and time. Those are things that I would say could help us avoid getting to a position like your friend that was like, man, I got to sell all of this. He went through all the work to get there, but maybe it's some reinvesting decisions that we make along the way, some more efficiencies with our dollars along the way that gives us back more time. And ultimately, then that allows us to leverage to whatever else we want to do.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, man, that was an amazing. I know you guys are saying rants in a negative connotation, but that was some amazing nuggets there. I could take it a bunch of ways. One thing I was thinking when Russ was talking about 3 points back, I'll kind of start with that, was that folks in general, investors in general, at least in our arena, may not put an emphasis on time when they're building up, the quote unquote monster here. And that's just something that's so important. I think Russ said you have 4 children. Joe, I think you said you had 5 children. You want to be able to hang out with them and spend time with them. So, in addition to, it sounds like from what I gathered here from the back and forth rants, having that focus on systems and processes, having potentially a business consultant, people to hold you accountable, knowing your baseline expenses of what you need to have to live there are some great starting points. Your why, of course, if we want to start getting to personal stuff, your why, what you're doing it, obviously to spend time with your children and family, things like that are going to help you. But man, time is such a good measure of tool, and just having even putting a value on your hourly time. So, and I love talking in the business sense, creating processes, systems and processes in the business sense, but I also love talking about it for just personal stuff too. I'm trying to master this stuff before I have 4 or 5 children, family, stuff like that. So that's why I'm going hard on this one before I'm a family man. But even a small example in my personal life that just happened this past week, I got pulled over for being on the phone, and I got an $83 citation, or $86 citation, something like that. I'm going to be able to get out of it if I show up to court. But going to court, in my internal 80-20 digestive system, or my functioning there, my 80-20 spider senses are like, it's not even worth me taking off half a day of work really to go to the court, sit there for 2 or 3 hours, come back. So I'm pretty much just going to pay the citation without going to court, because it's like not even worth the exchange of time there. Similar to what you're using, that was a great example with the orthopedic. If 15% of your clients are taking up 40% of your time, you should be building in an 80-20 time spider sense to just say no to those type of things. So I love everything that you guys said. I'm going to go back and listen to it myself.
Yeah, I think, and as you mentioned, like you're even applying it to the personal side. Another great example is stuff like returns and things like that. Like my wife is so funny about this stuff. She's like, oh, I need to send this back, and I've got to go drop it by this place because it wasn't what we ordered exactly, and blah, blah, blah. And I start looking, I'm like, this is a $9 item or $17 or whatever. I'm like, Jess, my wife's name's Jessica. I'm like, Jess, don't waste your time. Like, just order what you want and we'll give it away. Like, it would be far less cost for you to give it away,
Yeah, if you want to give the kids, instead of selling lemonade for 50 cents on the front lawn, the next time they get the hearing to make some money, like send them out there with the tool from Home Depot that you didn't need or whatever. It's true though. Like, I for principle, I want to fight back on this water company that I got this bill on the other day that they're charging me more this month than they charged me for the previous month. But yet I turn the water off. During the winter time at my lake house, I go down and shut the water off so it doesn't freeze, and I get a bill for more. And I'm like, that's a lie. Like, I know you guys just made up that number because I've used no water, but it's like $43 or whatever. It's like, what? Anytime I spend on the phone, I'm losing money fighting this battle.
Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah. It's interesting taking like the emotion out of decisions, things like that. But, but yeah, I'm thinking kind of just hearing through this interview and kind of picking your guys' brains a little bit with which I've thoroughly enjoyed. If you guys can kind of build in almost this habit of thinking in a particular way about really valuing your time more than anything else, in addition to getting specialized knowledge like you guys can get from Russ and Joey's resources, can be super, super helpful in managing your personal life and your career, investments, everything like that.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, that's one of the things I mentioned E-Myth earlier. I listened to Darren Hardy's book, Entrepreneur Roller Coaster. And that was one that like talked about that up and down that we have, and just focusing on how to leverage A players in your business and helping grow your systems. And I remember him talking through an example of Sir Richard Branson. And this group was trying to get him to come speak at like a big corporate retreat. And they reached out to him and they said, hey, we'd love to have him come speak. Here's $250,000 and get him to come. And we just need him for a couple hours. And the response came back, man, he's so thankful for your offer. We'd love to come talk. But, right now he's working on some other projects and just can't make it. And so they came back and said, how about $1 million? And again, the same response came back at him, and it's like, okay, how about we have an open checkbook? Just tell us what the number is. We really want him to come speak to our group. And it came back, said, yeah, I don't think you understand. He has 3 priorities that he's working on, and speaking at your event is not one of them. And so I think that's the thing, is that we don't do that. We don't have these priorities and focuses that we're going to be successful in. And as we're doing this interview in January, we always have these resolutions that we try to create for ourselves, but we need to create systems that we're going to follow through on. And we're going to dedicate that this is what we're going to do. And this is how we're going to do it. We're not going to get derailed chasing the $43, at the water company or whatever it is.
Yeah. Chasing good things and leaving behind the best things. That's one of those things that I'm constantly trying to think through is this good, better, or best? And I need to focus on the best thing for my time. It's the thing I can't get back.
Extremely well said. I'm loving every minute of the interview. Do you guys have any resources as far as books in addition to, the podcast and the links I'm going to put in the show notes to help with this kind of mindset, investing, resources, everything like that?
Well, one of the books that has been a great resource to us, Carlos, and it has a little bit to do with what we're talking about from a time perspective, but more to do on like mindset and how to make our dollars work efficiently. It was something I learned about way back in 2009. It was a book called Becoming Your Own Banker. It's the infinite banking concept. You probably have heard about it somewhere along the way, but to me, this was one of the game changers for me as an investor, as a business owner, to where I figured out how to get my dollars to constantly be at work and for me to take charge and control as I go and do these deals. So we always love to share that book with our clients. That's going back to where we start with everybody. We go to this base foundation. We got to get all of that stuff right. And this is one of those areas that always comes into play. Almost every one of our clients has this in place and are using this into their real estate investing business, their personal investing or lending or whatever they're doing.
Very cool. Well, guys, this has been an awesome interview. I want to start making the descent to put a bow on this thing. Is there any other, final words of advice, any philosophies, anything you did mention? Russ, we're in January here. A lot of people are setting intentions, goals, everything like that. And it's I forget the stat, but I think by February, it's like 70 or 80% of goals or people that have set goals have got derailed. So in addition to all the great mindset stuff and kind of different pathways we've put people on with the awesome resources, I appreciate you guys hooking up that link too.
Yeah.
Any other final words, Russ or Joey, just kind of closing this thing out for folks?
I think I read recently when we talk about resolutions that if we are trying to accomplish something that is for our own purposes constantly, like I'm only focused on myself, that those are the things that are going to fall away if we don't have accountability and if it doesn't have a bigger purpose ultimately. And also to question some of those resolutions, to say, okay, am I just doing this and almost like checking off a box, or is it truly making me into someone that I'm not? Like, and do I need to become somebody to get to raise that lid like we were talking about earlier? And if the thing that you've set out to do, don't be afraid to shift or pivot if you realize that, man, this goal was a good goal, but it's really not making me into the person that I want to be or need to be in order for my lid to be raised. So that would be a little bit of advice there, so to speak. The other part would be, as it is at the beginning of the year, go ahead and make some of these changes and learn some of these things that are going to, like you said, set the foundation so that you have a place to launch from. And so, I'm hopeful that some of the resources we share will give you that kind of a launching pad.
Love it.
Yeah. Good stuff, man. Thank you, Carlos, for having us on the show. I really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure, guys. I appreciate you guys, how you choose to live your life. Clearly you do have that why that's bigger than yourselves, trying to help other people, got big families. So definitely a lot of appreciation in different ways for you guys. Check out the episode note, guys. Feel free to actually highly recommend, if you guys digged anything, which I'm sure you will if you've stuck around this long, or even if you listen to the Time Freedom Show. Check out Wealth Without Wallstreet. Awesome dudes. And we'll catch you on the next episode. Have a great 2020.